Hey everybody, how's it going today? I hope you're feeling crafty at home. It's been a little crazy here at the studio this morning, but I think I've gathered enough stuff to show you how to make one of my favorite and one of the products that we've done since the very beginning. I've always loved boxes, probably because when you think about candy, it always comes in some pretty little box. And I remember when I was little at the holidays, I always wanted like little Halloween candy boxes and little Christmas candy boxes. So I think that's probably where my love of boxes have come from. And even in Glitterville, here's a good example. These are little bird boxes. And while they look complex, they're really just boxes that you have at home or buy at the craft store that then you just embellish with everything you've got, and such as glitter and gold leaf and little findings. And the reason I didn't give a list of materials today that you might use on your box is I wanted you first to sort of see how I do it and explore the idea of what kind of box you want to make, because it's endless. And you can even do different size boxes, different shape boxes. And one thing to do is, I know a lot of people can go to the craft store, or you have gone and you've bought just the little paper mache boxes like this, but you can also just use boxes that you have at home that things have come in. I know anytime we buy Apple products, they come in such a beautiful box that's so sturdy. I always keep those and convert them into other things. And this little box is triangular, which you can also make just from cardboard, although that's a tricky project. So you're better off starting with a box that you already have. And then there's boxes like this that our little macarons come in, but it's all hand painted, and then it holds those. So that's essentially a candy box also. But today, what I'm going to make is a Parisian box that I'm going to put an Eiffel Tower on top of. But you can actually do this at home with figurines, cake decorations. If you made our pumpkin seed flowers yesterday, you could even cover the top with that. But I'm going to just show you some basics, and then you can make whatever kind of box you want to at home. Now, I'm going to start with the craft box that we just talked about. These are paper mache that are mached brown. They cost about 99 cents. You can buy them in almost any craft supply, even at a big box store that has a craft department. They usually have a few of these. So I'm going to start with that, but I don't always like that it's just this shape. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of cardboard like this. Turn this down so you can see it. I take my box, and you can tell that the top of the lid is a little bigger than the bottom, so because it's a lid. So I'm going to use that as my pattern, and I'm going to take a piece of cardboard, and I'm going to put the lid down, and with a pencil, I'm going to draw all around it to create a circle. Then, what I'm doing is I want to make a platform that this box sits on, so it makes it a little more interesting than just a plain box. So you can see here that the box that's about the size of the box. Sometimes the lid is a little bigger, but I'm going to use that as my guide. Then I'm going to take a pair of pinking shears, which are, some people call these alligator scissors, but the real term is pinking shears. And I'm going to cut in towards the circle. And I'm going to give myself, and it depends on how good you are at cutting a circle, but I'm going to give myself a little space, and I'm going to cut around the circle that I've just drawn. And you always want to move your scissors up when you do it, and match it back up with the teeth so you don't come to a spot where it has a flat edge. Often that's how they end. And you're going to go all the way around, just cutting. And it does take strong hands depending on how thick your cardboard is. This one is not actually too bad. You could actually use, if you don't have chipboard at home, you could actually use a cereal box as well. And you can see I'm coming up on the end, and I'm trying to hurry, but you sort of want it to match at the end. So now once you have your cardboard, you're going to take the box and you're going to glue it to the base like this. And that will give you a shape that is a little more interesting than just the box itself. Now here's another one that I had done previously that's a bigger box. You know, sometimes I like to do them and decorate them like cakes, put figures on top of them, and this is a big one, so I'll save it for another project, because today we're just focusing on how to make the basic box. So I have this, and I'm now going to, this circle as I'm preaching is a little bit sloppy, so let me clean it up a tiny bit. Okay, now I'm going to take some white glue, and I'm going to glue this to the box. And stick it down and sit that aside and let it dry. Now here's another one that I've already done where I've taken the box and I've put on the edge at the bottom. And you can see that it makes for a very cute little box. And this was one that I had covered in papers before and I've just painted over. Now another thing that as a crafter you should know is anytime I want to coat a surface that I know I'm going to paint, I always coat it with gesso. And gesso is a white paint that looks like, well, it looks like paint, but it's really a plaster material that gives the surface a little bit of tooth and really takes the paint beautifully. So that's what I've done here, is I've painted this box completely in gesso. If you don't have gesso, it is available at the craft stores, but you could also use just white paint. But put a good coat of paint on your box so it sort of seals it. Because like we talked about yesterday with wood, paper mache is also known for warping once you start doing a lot of stuff to it. So I just like to coat it with something and let that dry really well. These things are all a little bit tacky, so hopefully we won't run into a lot of problems. So now that I've got my box, I have to decide what I want to do to it. And if you're a person who wants to stripe your box, which I had thought about doing today, but I thought it might be too complicated. But let me give you a brief description. And that is, take a pencil and put a point on each side and on each side there. So like at 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock. Then just go in between those and divide them up. And continue to make marks that way. And then go down the side from there and make your stripes. It took me forever. I used to do a whole thing where I would take a measuring tape and I would go around and I would say, okay, so it's 8 inches and that's divided into, but the easiest thing is just to take a pencil, mark off your points, divide them, and then draw down the sides. So that's an easy way to do stripes like this on a box. And it would be the same way if you were doing a square box instead of a round. Although square is a little bit easier, and then the triangular box a little bit harder. So the first thing to decide is, what do you want the sides of your box to look like? You could actually paint it a solid color. You could glitter it like this one is. You could even cover it in a fabric. I think I have some ribbons here, like these ribbons. You could even glue along the sides of your box some really fancy trims like this. But for today, I'm just going to paint it. But I don't want to paint it solid. I want it to have sort of an ombre effect, almost like the walls here, but not as many colors. So to do that, I'm going to take some acrylic paints, and as I said in the previous craft, I always use acrylic paints that are cheap. They're like 99 cents. Apple Barrel is really my favorite. And you can get these at any craft store that you go to. So I want this to have a little bit of an ombre effect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my paint and I'm going to squeeze a little bit out on my plate here. And then next to it, I'm going to put the other color that I'm going to ombre into. So this is sort of going to be like a sky that goes from a pink to sort of a bluey green. And I'm going to put that beside the pink. I've used this a lot, so there's not a lot left. Okay. Now, I'm going to take a brush that is sort of wide. It's probably like an inch wide brush. I'm going to dip it in a little bit of water and wipe that off with a paper towel so you're not too wet here. And then I'm going to do what we call loading your brush. And that's where I want this part of the brush to be the blue, and I want this part of the brush to be the pink. Then here, I'll do a little bit of that so you can see how the ombre happens. Then on my box, I'm just going to start, I want the blue to be at the bottom, so I'm going to start going around like that. And you can see, you get those two and they start to blend together. So I'm going to load the brush again and start to go around. Now, one thing to remember when you're painting boxes, and sometimes I forget, and then it causes you a lot of problems later, is if you paint under where the lid goes, oftentimes the lid is pretty wiggly to get back on. And it's something I always forget, and I paint underneath. But if I'm starting with just a brown box, I usually draw around the lip of the lid with a pencil so I know where I am, and I leave under there empty so I don't have to fight that later. As you can see today, I've painted underneath, so I'm sure that'll be some pain later. So now I've done that, and I'm going to flip my brush over because I'm not sure where I want the rest of the color to be. But I know that I like a little bit of contour at the top, so now I'll just do the opposite. And then they'll meet in the middle. And if you have a place like that that's a little bit more, you can just keep feathering over it like that. And you can even go back and do the bottom again until you get a blend that, because I'm not looking for a perfect stripe. I could also do that, but I'm just wanting it to be an interesting color that's pretty and will look good with my box when I'm done. And you could also add other colors. When I paint the walls, I always, which I did when we opened the store, I did a lot of videos on how to do the unicorn walls. So anytime I use this technique, I always call it the unicorn technique because it's lots of smudgy rainbow colors. And so this is sort of what it looks like when you get to that point. And again, you can push it, as an example, because I'm going to move to another box in a minute, but you can really make it where you just get one color at the bottom and see it's almost like a stripe. But for this purpose, we're just going to keep smearing and smudging around. And if you wanted to glitter this entire box and still see the color through it, you can always use like a crystal glitter or a glass glitter that you can see. So there's lots of options. Someone says they have both books. Do you have plans for another? I always have plans for another book, but books are really hard to do. And since every step has a picture, it takes a lot of time. And Brian is always against my doing another book. So if you have any glitter discussion mail you want to send him about that,
Please don't ask for more books.
But yes, I want to do more books, and eventually that'll happen. But right now we're so busy that there's not a lot of time for any more books. So inside is white currently, but I always like to finish off the inside as well, because when you have people who open the box, you want them to be as surprised about the inside as they are the outside. So I usually paint the inside of the box and then fill it with some like gold shred or shredded paper. Shredded tissue paper is one of my favorite things also. What kind of paints are we using? We're using acrylic paint. I usually use Apple Barrel, which is my favorite. This is Delta Ceramicoat. You see them at the craft store, and they're all together, and you know, they're very popular, and it's pretty much the only acrylic paints at the stores these days, unless you go to a real painting section. So, have you thought about writing a children's book? Yes, children's books are a whole nother thing. Brian actually encourages that. He says, oh, why don't you do a kid's book about Dolly and illustrate it? Because my illustrating it means he doesn't have to take pictures of it. So that's the reasoning behind that. So I'm going to put a little bit of paint. I know this is bad form, but I just dump it in the box and smear it around. And oftentimes when you're painting paper mache or cardboard, if you paint one side and it warps, you can paint the other side and they meet in the middle. So, so that's part of the reason also. If you paint the insides of the box, if there was going to be any warpage that would change how the lid fit, this will help settle it out. Somebody said, I think their Easter Bunny had scuffs on his face. Their big paper mache Easter Bunny. The best thing to remove scuffs from paper mache is to dampen the corner of a Mr. Clean sponge, magic eraser, and just wipe it with that. Not so much that you remove the paint, but it removes the scuffs. There's something about those things. They remove almost anything from anything. So, thank you very much. Where is your chicken? She is right behind that counter walking around pecking for corn. So that's what she's doing this morning. Okay, so I've painted the inside. I could get carried away and just talk and paint the inside of this box. So that's what it looks like when we get to that point. Okay, now I'm going to set that one aside and balance my paintbrush that's too big for my water bowl before it flips back up. And I'm going to move to one that's already drying. And I've done this sort of sloppily, but here's the bottom. And around the edges, I'm gold leafing, just because I like to gold leaf everything. Now, when it gets to the lid, you can continue to paint the lid and glitter it, or you can gold leaf around the edges. Now, I haven't done my lid yet, so, well, I gold leaf this one. But you can also make it just as interesting by painting it. Sometimes there can be too much gold leaf if you're on a very small project, so I wouldn't want to leave it completely just gold leaf. But I'm going to put it on the box, which you can see here. And you can see how it's really turning into a cute little thing that you could imagine giving somebody bonbons in, which I wish I had, but I don't have the actual bonbon. So now we've got a little box, we've put a base on it, we've made a top, and we have gold leafed it or painted it. Now, here's where your decisions get started. Now, one of the things you can do at home is if you have a favorite figurine that was passed down in your family, or, you know, there's just, like, one of my favorite things has always been cake decoration. Like when I was little, I had a birthday cake that was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And I saved and dragged around those little plastic elves the rest of my life. I still have them. So things like that are things that you might want to put on top of your box, because then it turns that little trinket that wasn't very much in most people's eyes when you look at it, But then when you put it on a box, then it becomes suddenly something that's more than just that little tiny trinket. Now, if you're quarantined in a place like I am, where you have trinkets at every turn, that's not a big deal. So at home, you just look around and find things that you think will be good on yours. But here's some examples. If I was making this for a dog lover and it was their birthday, perhaps I would make a little box that had this little bulldog corn. I guess he's called a unidog. There's also a cat. Perhaps I would make that and give it to a pet lover. Or perhaps you've got somebody who really loves sloths and you wanted to attach a sloth. Now, to talk about this for a moment, if I was putting something on top that was in an odd position like this, I would take something like a wood disc like we used yesterday, or even a bottle cap would probably work, like this but smaller and white, like comes on a regular water bottle. You missed the start. The base is just a paper mache box from the craft store that we cut a new base for and put at the bottom. So if I wanted to put something like this on top of a box, I would perhaps put the lid on top of it, or something that makes it stable, and drill a hole through the box and put glue on both sides. Then cover it with a little piece of felt or something like that to hold it. The point there is that you want to really secure it through the box, because this ornament is heavy. So if I really wanted it to stay on the box, I would have to drill through the box. You could drill through the ornament, put a wire, and then a little felt on the other side to cover what you've put through. That was sort of an advanced box discussion I probably should have kept to myself. But in case you're advanced at box making and want to put something heavy on, now you know how. Now, for people who are not as intrigued for putting heavy things on their boxes, there are things like these French ornaments. This is my favorite. His name is Pierre, and he carries a baguette. That's a really easy thing to put on a box because he's lightweight and can be glued on, and it doesn't add a lot of weight to the box, even as you hand somebody a gift. I've made a lot of things in my time that, you know, they look very dreamy, and then you hand it over, especially tiaras, which we're going to make later in the week. But tiaras is one of those things that when I first started, I would find all these big, beautiful things that were so heavy, and I would put them on the tiara, and they look beautiful, but then when you actually put them on your head, it's a little heavy. So that's another one of those times that you have to be really careful about what you're securing to it. So now, while Pierre could be used on my box, which is very cute, I think because of shape, I'm going to use our Eiffel Tower ornament that sits on a pile of macarons. And the reason I like it is it's on a pile and then it comes up to a point. So now this has an ornament hook at the top, but I'll also probably augment that a little bit so it doesn't look like I've just put an ornament on top. So as you can see here, that makes a really pretty little shaped box that you could imagine going to Paris and getting at one of the confectionaries. So,
what brand name of gold leaf do you suggest?
Any gold leaf that you get at the store, at the craft store, will work. Everyone knows we use our own gold leaf that we have from our factories, and we are going to start selling some of it because everybody asks, and I always say, oh, we're going to do it, but then we forget and we don't do it. But it's really great and really easy to use, so that's why I use this and why everything around me is gold. So I'm going to use the Eiffel Tower, and as an ornament, I'm going to pull the top off, and I'll save it because I don't throw anything away that I think later maybe I'll just convert it back to an ornament or something like that. So I'll pull the top off, but I'll save it. And that reveals the hole there. And I'm going to take a little bit of gold leaf because it's very structurally sound. You know, some gold leaf you buy is very sensitive because it's carrier, it's adhesive, or I guess carrier is the right word. is very thin and weak. This is actually very durable. But you could also use tissue paper, because nothing's more beautiful than tissue paper that you cut into a shred. That is one of my all-time go-tos, which you can see even on this little bird box. That's just shredded paper that I shred and then tuck under the bird. So shredded, you can do a lot with shredded paper.
What glue do you recommend?
The glue for this project is, my materials are always simple. This is just Aleene's tacky glue. There are other brands of tacky glue. And the reason behind that is tacky glue is thicker. So when you put it on something and stick something in it, it tends to stay more. Because if you think back to Elmer's glue, it was always a little bit runny. And you would put it on and whatever you were doing would slide a little bit. So we want something that stays where we put it. And tacky glue usually does that.
A lot of people are excited about us selling gold leaf.
A lot of people are excited about gold leaf, Brian said. I'll put him on this project. And if you don't see gold leaf soon, you can get after him. So now I've cut a little twizzle of shredded gold leaf, and I've twisted it at the end, and I'm just going to tuck it into the top of this Eiffel Tower. I know you're not really seeing it, but I'm going to show it to you. Now, that just gives a little bit of a sprawl at the top and makes it look less like an ornament and more like the Eiffel Tower is celebrating something, which it always is. So now I've readied my top piece to go on my box. Now, if you're at home, when I first started making these a long time ago, I remember I had a little cow. I had two little cows, and they had flowers in their hair, and they were porcelain, and I glued those to a box. And I still have those at home. And it, like I said before, it took something that was only sort of an interesting thing that was sitting on the shelf and made it really fun to look at. So now I have my topper. You can decide what your topper is going to be. And now I think we should probably add some glitter to this project. Now my table is so full of stuff. Let me hand this off. It's not bad when I don't have to show you the table, but when I have to show you, then there's no room. Okay, so let's talk about glitter for a minute. There are lots of different kinds of glitter that you can use on types of projects like this. Most of the glitters that you buy at the store are for lack of a better word, they're a plastic glitter. It's a very thin sheet of plastic that then they cut out all those little tiny pieces from. So it's a very wispy kind of glitter, and it is great with kids, and it's easy to put on. But I've always liked, for Glitterville products, I've always liked a chunkier glitter. And in the beginning, I would buy all these from Germany, and they were glass glitters. And the glass is beautiful, but you do have to be a little careful with it. And it's not as great for kids. But it does make sort of an heirloom piece that you can look at forever and gives it an interesting effect on your projects. So, that said, here are some glitters we're going to look at today. And these are Glitterville glitters that I call unicorn glitter. Interesting original name. So this one is sort of a purpley color. Let's see if you can see it here.
A lot of people are asking about where the video is going to be saved at.
The video is guaranteed to be saved here for 24 hours. After that, we are doing a screen save of these things, and perhaps I'll post them on my regular Instagram at some point soon.
Can you explain why they can't be on highlights? Because people are asking about it to be on highlights.
On highlights, I'm not sure what that means.
You know, the highlights where you save the story at the top.
Oh, it doesn't. Well, there's something wrong with my Instagram account that doesn't allow me to save like normal people do. So for some reason, I'm not sure why, but we keep working on it, but to no avail. So this is the purpley pink and gold unicorn glitter. Then this one is sort of a mermaid sea kind of palette and is all sort of pinks and purples and greens, mostly blues and pinks. And there's actually 4 in this series, but I only have 3 here. And then this one is sort of a goldy, pinky, creamy kind of color. So as you can see, these add a lot of texture to anything that you put them on. And today, through the rest of today, all the glitters, since we're using them for this project, are going to be on the website for 30% off. 30% off with the code Sparkle30.
Just search for unicorn glitter on the.
So go to the website and search unicorn glitter, and you will find these, and they'll be 30% off today. So if you like glitter, you might like these. Now, any glitter will actually work for this project, whatever you have at home. You don't have to have this, but it does give you a lot of texture that you don't get from normal glitter. So now let's decide what kind. The code is Sparkle30 if you want the glitter. So let's decide what colors we're going to put on our box. I'm now looking for my Eiffel Tower. There it is. Okay, so pretty much every color is represented here, but I sort of like this pinky, blue, and purpley color. There's the purple, there's the blue. Now the purple is a little brighter. I guess we could do that and see which one we like. That one looks like birthday cake, so I think that's what I'll go with. So we're going to take that glitter, get my tray here. Now, when you get ready to put glitter on anything, and this is something that I can't express enough, is tacky glue is the best thing to apply glitter with. Reasons being, it doesn't run, and it really holds the glitter. But the thing to remember is you have to put glue on thickly because you can never go back. Like if you put a really thin coat of glue and then you put some glitter and then you decide you want to put some more glitter, that's always problematic because your brush is going to drag off the glitter that you put on. So I can't advise enough to make your glue really thick. So usually what I do is I just take the lid off of the glue so you have this big opening for it to come out of. And I squeeze some in the middle like that. Now don't put so much that you have to remove it because you can always add more if you need to. And I'm just going to brush that around the top of the box. Now this whole thing was painted, gold leafed, glued, and everything about 5 minutes before we started this project. So at home you want to let your things dry enough because this would be problematic if I thought I was making an heirloom that was going to last forever, because you run the risk of everything peeling off completely because you didn't let the layers dry. Now, as thick as that looks, you can see my brush strokes there, so I feel like I need just a little bit more because what you're actually doing is you're sinking, that's a lot more, you're actually sinking the glitter into the glue. And it almost looks like a birthday cake already, like this is the frosting. So, and if you notice, I'm not going all the way to the edge because when you put glitter in this, it's going to push it over to the edge. So just brush your glue almost to the edge, but not quite. And just continue to try and make your glue as uniform and even as you can. But you're going to put a lot of glitter in it, so it's not really going to matter. Okay, so I've done that. And now I'm going to start putting my glitter into it. So here's the glitter. And I start by sprinkling the glitter. And this is fun because it has lots of gold in it also. So it sort of picks up the gold leaf as well. So it starts rather fragilely like this, just to get that first layer into it and to sort of cover up the glue that's there so it doesn't stick to my hand in a minute when I start patting all of this down. So then take your hand and just start going into it. And you can see how it works out the edges. And I know it's important that you want the glitter to have a little bit of, you want it to stand up a little bit too, so you don't want to flatten it out too much, but you also want it to stick past your, once you've glued it, because you don't want to give it to someone and the glitter's falling off. Now, if you did want to add just a little bit more glitter at some point, but it's never easy, you can wait until the thing is completely dried, shake everything off, and then go back into it later because it won't fall off when you rebrush it. But if you put it on thickly the first time, you don't have to go back and do it later. So it's that old thing of do it right the first time and you won't have to redo it, which is a good thing to live by. I don't always. So now we've glittered our box and we're ready to put something on top of it, which we've decided is going to be our Eiffel Tower. So here's the Eiffel Tower. And you can see just how cute it is sitting atop the box. Like this. Now, in normal time, I would let this dry completely, and then I would come back and I would put some glue on the bottom and set it in. Now, even your topper can be glued on with white glue. You know, a lot of people really want most people, or some people, who work quickly always like to use hot glue. And hot glue does hold really fast. Like you could take this, put some hot glue on it and stick it on. But for me, hot glue is never my go-to. There's sometimes that you have to use it because there's nothing else that'll work that well, because you need something held really quick. But for me, when you're really doing a craft that you want to last forever and be, you know, something that you can be proud of, regular glue gives you the time to, like if you put hot glue on this and you stick it on there but it's crooked, it's already stuck. So you've wasted all that time and you have a crooked Eiffel Tower. But if you use white glue always is forgiving enough that it gives you the time that you need to actually put it on. So while we're there, I'll just take a little bit of white glue, put it on the bottom, and just stick it right in the center of my box. So if you are a hot glue person, let your glitter and everything dry completely and then come back to it. And with this one, I'm just putting white glue and putting it in the middle. Now, to finish up, I like to trim things with, you know, papers, crepe papers, gold leaf, and also little flowers. Now, you can use vintage flowers like milliner's flowers, which are is a term from hat makers, where the turn of the century, where you would see lots of big hats with beautiful velvet flowers and things on it. So I call any little flower that I find that's not just like a silk flower that's a little more interesting, I refer to as milliner's flowers. So with this, I can now decide, and I'm not sure that flowers are the right thing for this particular box, but if it were, I would take the flowers and just sort of tuck them in at the edges. Maybe I'll put a few on this one. Let's see. And the great thing about a box is you can also personalize it. And if you want to put a little banner, like here's a good example, like on the tiaras, which we're going to make later this week. I always make a banner. We have a template that I draw out, and then I write on it whatever the message is. So if I'm giving this to somebody for their birthday or that kind of thing, I will often make a little banner, which is as easy as just cutting a piece of paper into a strip, which I can show you. Just a second. So on my Eiffel Tower here, let's see if I can split the difference. I'm going to put just a few of these little flowers around the edges. Somebody asked where the flowers come from. These are flowers we use on one of our products, but any little posy that you can find at the store will work. And if I were going to leave these, I would glue it. But I'm really just showing you because I don't think I like the flowers on it as much for me. You can leave their stem. Although maybe it's cute. I'll take the stem back out on this one. And voila. It's a pretty cute little box. And you can see how quickly you can make it. And, that's the key. But right now you've got time. You've got plenty of time to be crafting at home. I almost dread when everybody goes back to work and I know that even for myself, once we're gone, I'm going to be like, dang, I wish I had done this or I wish I had done that, although we've been pretty busy. When you quarantine at a crafty place like this, instead of your house where you can just rest, it tends to keep you busy, which has been very fun. And while we want everybody to get back to work, I think we'll all miss the time we had at home with our families and making things. Someone said pom-poms would be very cute. Pom-poms are a great trim. That's ball fringe is really fun, which comes on like a bias tape that has a drop-down pom-pom. So that can be really fun. And let me show you how to make a banner here out of the paper that's covering my table. So it's not... So if I wanted to put a banner on this little box, I would just take this, cut it into a strip, like that, and I would do a swallowtail cut at the end. Now keep in mind, this is craft paper that's covering my table, so it's not very glamorous. Although I could take this and gold leaf the edge and make it really pretty. I think I have a Sharpie here. Is there a pink Sharpie right on there? I have a black Sharpie. So if I wanted to do a little banner, I would just cut a strip of paper like this, do a swallowtail cut at the end. Brian's given me a gold Sharpie. And then I would write, happy birthday. I could write happy birthday and put it on it, or I could do if I wanted to do one that was almost like a gift tag, where you're giving it to someone and you want them to know who gave it to them, perhaps you would do a little swallowtail and just sign your name on it. So it gives it a little interesting tag. And people will always know where it came from. So I've just signed my name. And then I would, keep in mind, this is not a real one, but then I would just fold the end under like that, put a little glue, and I could tuck it into the box under the edge of the flowers, or this one I would probably put inside the box and let it hang out. Just showing that I made it and that I cared enough to give it to them and spend time on it. So, hi Stephen, what time will the glitter be on sale? I think, have you put the code up? He just put the code up. So it is Sparkle 30, and there are 4 different colors. So if you're interested, you can buy that. But that's today only, so he'll take the code down tomorrow. So I hope that you enjoyed making this. Can't place my order. There's only United States. You don't ship to Canada. Every day someone asks that, and I say, yes, we do, probably.
We
okay.
don't.
But Brian says that currently we don't, but he is working on that for the holiday season.
I'm trying to work on Canada for the summertime. So
Canada is going to be added for the summer, and then for the fall and for the holidays, we're going to add the UK and hopefully France and Australia. So by the end of the year, everybody will be able to watch that as well. So, or order things as well. So anyway, this is a very cute Parisian Eiffel Tower box that you can, and if you want the Eiffel Tower, we do have this ornament on the website. Is this ornament 30% off today? Only the glitter is 30% off. But we do sell it. So we do have the Eiffel Tower, should you want to make this exact box. So anyway.
And if anybody's having trouble with the promo code, just place your order and we will discount it after.
Brian says if anyone is having trouble putting in the discount code, because a lot of times, no matter how easy you think you've made it, people will say, oh, I can't find it, or oh, it doesn't work, or oh, I capitalized sparkle but not 30, or something. There's always something. He says not to worry. If you place your order, when he processes it, he will go ahead and do the 30% off. But it's best if you try to do it yourself, so it's already there. Someone said thank you for the tutorial. Yay! And merci beaucoup. This made my day. It's my quarantine birthday. Happy birthday! Or as you, do you know what's French for happy birthday? Do we still have that tiara? I thought we had a happy birthday French tiara, but apparently it is not close by. So, but we hope you have a happy birthday anyway, and maybe you can make your own box. Make your own happy birthday box. So, all right, kids. Well, later in the week, we're going to do a tiara. I'm sorry that I didn't get this posted in advance because I didn't really know what I was doing today exactly, so I had to do it just a few minutes before we started. So, so anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. Have fun. Make it. And make every day, yes, joyeux anniversaire is how you say happy birthday in French. I didn't finish that. Looking forward to tiaras. I think the tiara project will be on, what is today? Today is? Tuesday. So I don't know if it'll be tomorrow or Thursday, probably. So what tiaras should we get to make the, or supplies should we get to make the tiara? The supplies you will need for the tiara are, and I only have an hour, I'm going to run out of time, is just chipboard like this, and you can buy it at the craft store, or you can just use the back of a cereal box. If you've eaten as many boxes of cereal during quarantine as I have, you should have plenty of cardboard around. But this is chipboard, and if you are using cereal board, please paint it, so at least at the end you know you're starting with a clean piece of poster board looking stuff. Poster board's not quite thick enough, so it needs to be thicker than just a piece of poster board. So anyway, that's that. But you will need chipboard or cardboard. You will need some flowers. You will need some glitter of some sort. And that's pretty much it. You can also, I do all kinds of tiaras, and that nutcracker back there has already sold out. Every day somebody asks about him, but that's Colonel Cupcake Cotton Candy Edition. Sold out for the year, except for the small one, which will come in during the holiday season. The big ones are gone. So yeah, for the tiaras, you basically need, because I'm like Johnny One Note, I use all the same materials all the time. So it's pretty much the same materials for the tiara. But I also like to use them, I've even made them where I take the person's face and I, like if it's their birthday, I made one for Oprah once that had Oprah, and I laid it on the tiara template, and then I cut her out, and then I build everything up around it. So you can make one for your friends that actually has their face on it. So that can always be fun. But so anyway, yes, join me again, and probably Thursday. But I'll announce it on my stories because I don't always get it done in time to post a picture. So anyway, I'm getting rambly, but I hope you had fun. And I want you to make it and make every day a holiday. See you later.